He was born in the summer of his 27th.
So I do believe it is a big win for Make America Healthy Again when you have the International Dairy Foods Association, dairy farmers saying that they're going to eliminate artificial colors in their ice cream. I think that's excellent. And I think that the idea of, well, you know, that Robert Kennedy, and he just doesn't want you to get vaccinated, he's going to get people killed. You'll notice how that's a leftist talking point, and there's no connection with the American people on that. Tony Katz, 93 WIBC. Good morning. Good to be with you. It's okay to question a vaccine. It's okay to talk about vaccines. No, I don't think every vaccine is a killer. No, I don't think vaccines are the conversation regarding autism. There are some very interesting conversations about other things at play. But it's okay to discuss it. I never minded that. But this idea of look what we've got in our food, look what we're doing to our kids, we don't need to do this. This connects. And it connects in a very large scale way. And I don't think there's really a denial that America's saying we should eat healthier. How is it we eat bread and pasta and somehow everybody's sick, but the Italians eat bread and pasta and everybody's fine? It could be a difference in how they make their bread and pasta. That's the story. Why don't we notice these things? Why don't we say so? I never wanted him as the secretary. I didn't want him anywhere that near power. But making these observations, making these recommendations, championing these concepts, absolutely in favor of. And so these are wins. These are wins that parents are going to go with. And if we want to say the moms are going to be like, this is great. Yes, I do argue that there are things that parents should be doing for their own kids to keep their kids healthy. The counter argument, I think, is valid. How do you expect us to do that when we allow for such horrible things to be in the food supply that our kids are surrounded by? And where do you find the other thing except to find it at a price that becomes impossible? If you can find it. This is different than, well, the problem is that people don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. Of course they do. That is different than foods are made with this thing because it was regulated in and found cheaper and you can't find it another way. And if we allowed for the other way, man, we'd have some better outcomes. I like the movement. We're going to see where it goes. What I cannot believe is that we're still talking about Jeffrey Epstein. I let it go because, dear Lord, these people who were like, you shouldn't be paying attention to Jeffrey Epstein, it doesn't matter. I was on Newsmax yesterday, and I didn't know, I was on with Carl Higbee. I didn't know that Carl agreed with me. This was a miss from the president. From President Trump, it was a miss. You can't tell people stop caring about this thing when it's a big deal. And it's a big deal that someone was involved in child sex trafficking. Maybe people in power were involved with this, and we're going to decide, no, we don't need to know who they are. Oh, wait, there's a list. Oh, wait, there's not a list. It gets very, very messy. Well, in that mess, you have, of course, the political left thinking that they've got some kind of understanding of the situation, which is hilarious. MSNBC.
And, you know, you would have thought that guy would have watched The Wire and learned from Stringer Bell that if you're running a criminal conspiracy, you don't want to put a lot of it down on paper. So the notion of a magic list was always slightly implausible. On the other hand, you had Donald Trump over the weekend sounding a lot like when he started saying that the Epstein files existed, basically implicitly in some of his Truth Social posts, and sort of blaming it on the Democratic deep state, that he was maybe trying to lay the groundwork for the release of some documents that he was then going to claim were the creation of John Brennan and Jim Comey and Hillary Clinton and whoever else, which would be a normal Trump move. We don't know what there is. And so I'm going to stay out of that. I believe the reporting of our colleagues that there is no master list, some magic document. But Trump's behavior suggests that maybe there is something there that he's told Pam Bondi he doesn't want to have out in the public. Who knows what that might be?
You made that up. If you don't know what's on it, you don't get to speculate about why he's doing it. Allow me, however, to answer the question, leftist, because you're so disconnected. President Trump miscalculated. And President Trump failed to remember that he doesn't get to decide what people are interested in. When he said build a wall, he connected with people all across the country who said we need better immigration policies and we need a safer border. That's what happened. He gave voice to what it is they were thinking and saying, and that's why it worked. And then with this, he said, stop saying and thinking these things. And that's not how people work. And I watched fellow radio hosts and pundits and others go down the road of Bill Kristol. Don't look at that right over there. Don't look at that thing behind the curtain. We're the real Trump supporters, and we'll tell you what to think. That's not how it works. It's the same ridiculousness that they did about Never Trump. These people get their fiefdoms, get their egos, and they never freaking learn. And they get to call themselves influencers, and they're just morons. It's despicable how ridiculous they are and how much they hate everyday Americans who are like, wait a second. We were told there was an issue here. Now, all of a sudden, there's no issue? No. We don't care whose name is part of this. We want to know if they're going to go to jail. And this conversation figured, I think, way too large at the event there with Turning Point USA. And I said yesterday on the show, on the midday show, I don't know Charlie Kirk, but after all these Epstein conversations, Tucker Carlson and everything else, I felt bad for him. I did. I don't think he wanted this at his event, right? He's built something. I think this was kind of problematic to it, and hey, these things can happen, and you move on. And then he said this.
Plenty was said this last weekend at our event about Epstein. Honestly, I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done, solve it, balls in their hands. I've said plenty this last weekend.
You're going to trust your friends in the government? Listen, you do whatever you want, but did you just say you're going to trust your friends in the government?
So if you guys want to see my commentary on it, that's fine. We have escalatory action potentially being taken in Ukraine and Russia. We have tons of announcements happening when it comes to NATO. But let me just say this again. Everyone knows my opinion about the Epstein thing, the messaging fumble. I would love to see the DOJ move to unseal the grand jury testimony. I think that would be a big win. I would love to see that. And I'm going to trust my friends, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, my friend Pam Bondi, all these guys. I'm going to Todd Blanche. I'm going to trust them to solve it.
I wanting something unsealed, okay, but rattling off people, calling them your friends, and saying I trust them to solve it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can't imagine that hits the ear well. I'll trust the government to solve it. We're the government. It's me, right? I'm seeing this wrong. No, I'm not. I'm not seeing this wrong at all. That is a very weird statement from Charlie Kirk, and I can't believe it actually got said. I'll explain why on Tony Katz today at noon, but you know why. Matt Barris.